What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Great day. Well, if you click on this video, more than likely you're having some oil pressure issues with your car. But today I'm going to show you a simple solution to repair that problem and hopefully keep that from happening again. Alright guys, so if you're experiencing oil pressure issues, one or two things has happened. Your oil pressure sensor has failed internally. Now, it's failed either open or closed. And if your sensor has failed open, the issue or concern that you're experiencing right now is that you're experiencing way too much oil pressure on the gauge. Your gauge is pegged out full max. Not a big deal, because more than likely the gauge is just not reading correctly and you can still drive your vehicle. But if you're experiencing where the gauge is stuck closed, the issue or concern that you're experiencing is you're going to get an indication on the instrument cluster saying reduced engine power, and the oil pressure gauge is going to go to 0, and your car is going to go into a limp mode or safety mode where you cannot drive it more than 20 miles an hour. If that's the problem, then more likely you're going to have to replace that part sooner than later. Right over here on the bench is the sensor that we're going to be replacing today. This is a very common problem on GM cars. Now, this can happen on all makes and models, but it does happen a lot more on GM vehicles. And the sensor here is, depending on the make and model what you have, can be fairly simple to do. But also sometimes it's very tricky to do. The sensor is going to be located on the very back of the engine block, right on the very back, right behind the upper intake. There is ways to get to the sensor without removing the whole intake assembly. You can reach back there and get it with the extension and a socket, but for today's purposes I'm going to go ahead and remove the intake to show you exactly what it looks like and where it's located on this Corvette. Now, like I said, it's basically the same location for Chevy Tahoes, Chevy Silverados, 5.3s, 6.0s, 6.2s, 5.7s. It's in the same. Something really cool that I found on Amazon. This is a oil pressure sensor relocation kit. So basically this plugs in, or this screws into the engine block where the sensor is, and then this wire, the end of it, is where you plug in the sensor, and you can relocate it to the top up here. So these fail so often that it'll be easier once that sensor fails again, or when it does fail again, it'll be right here. So it'll be easier access to get to, and I won't have to worry about reaching back there or anything like that. We can just undo it right here. It'll take 2 minutes versus taking a couple hours. So this is pretty cool. This should work for all makes and models as far as GM products. This adapter, I'm gonna go ahead and link it out down below. Like I said, I got this off Amazon. It's gonna save you in the long run, trust me, from trying to reach your hand back there or removing the intake and all that, if this issue does happen again. So let's go ahead and get started by removing the intake. Alright guys, we finally have reached the point where we can remove the intake. We got all the fuel injectors disconnected, we got the fuel line disconnected, we got all the electrical connectors off. We've removed all the intake bolts. I went ahead and put some tape around the rear bolts because we can't get them all the way off because of the cowl. But I put some tape around the bottom of the bolts so it keeps them from falling back down and getting hung up. Now we can simply just pull up on the intake nice and slow, pull it forward, make sure we have nothing make sure we got everything disconnected, and we can go ahead and remove our intake slowly out of their way. And this is basically what we're trying to keep from falling into the combustion chambers, is all this gunk and debris. We're going to clean all this up here before we install the intake. So we're going to get a vacuum, clean up all this trash. But what we're trying to reach is back here, this bevel right here. And as you can tell, it's already starting to leak. These are also a common issue on these. is when they fail, they leak internally and they come out of the connector, and it'll run down the block of your engine, causing an oil leak as well. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and use a can of brake cleaner here to kind of clean off the area so I know I don't got any trash going in there. Simply just do our connector there. It's time to grab our socket, slip it over the sensor here. And the great thing about this socket here, it is a 1 inch and also a 1 1/16 inch socket. It's a 2-in-1, so most of these oil pressure sensors come in 2 different sizes. It's either gonna be a 1 inch or a 1 1/16. This sensor, or this socket here, has both sizes built into it. So it's a great socket to have. And it's also a thin wall socket because there's very little to no room to remove this socket here. You can't put a regular size socket in here. It's just gonna be too thick. So you need to get a oil pressure sensor socket. Go ahead and remove this sensor. All right guys, so this is the point where we can go ahead and install our brand new oil pressure sensor in the same location. Or if you're gonna go my route and you're gonna go ahead and install the sensor extension, this is the good time to go ahead and take it apart from the end. And we need to install the fitting that goes into the block first, because like I said, it's a very tight location here. You won't be able to tighten this securely with the sockets if you have the hose attached to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and take mine apart first and finger tighten it for now, and then we're gonna attach the hose after we tighten this fitting. Let you know that mine did not come with the filter inside the block. That might just be for the newer GM vehicles like the Silverados, the Tahoes. Those do have and do utilize that filter. Mine does not, so I'm not going to go ahead and install it. If yours does not have a filter in there, this little filter here, if yours does not have it in there, do not install it. Your vehicle does not require that. I would not install it because I'm not sure if that's going to cause any kind of oil pressure issues. So I'm not going to install it on mine because mine did not have it. But if it does have it, that is a good time to go ahead and replace that as well. All right, now that we went ahead and installed our oil pressure relocation kit into the block, we are going to get ready to clean up the inside of the valley here and get it ready to install the intake. So let's go ahead and get this cleaned up. With everything cleaned up now, we can go ahead and get the intake ready to install. But first, we need to go ahead and replace the intake gaskets on the intake. All right, guys, so I'm going to show you why it's a good practice to just go ahead and replace your intake gaskets while you're there. So over here on the intake, if you take a look at the factory gasket here, look how flat it is on the actual intake. It's like barely even sticking past the intake, so not really making much of a seal there. Whereas on this new one, look at that nice, good beveled edge there. So this is going to give us really good seal, proper seal, not have any intake leaks, any kind of leaks at all on the head. So you definitely want to go ahead and just replace your gaskets while you're there. A few bucks, it's going to save you a lot of headaches later down the road. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the rest of them. All right, with everything cleaned up now, we can go ahead and get the intake ready to install. Just like that, guys, the intake is back installed. Everything is ready to go. One last step is to install the oil pressure sensor on here and connect it. But before we do that, guys, this is a good time for you guys to hit and like that subscribe button on the video. If you guys found this video helpful, or if you guys want to see more content like this in the future, it also does help the channel out. So let's go ahead and get to installing that sensor and finish this project up. All right, guys, we are going to grab our new sensor here, and we are going to simply just screw this onto the relocation hose here, and we're going to grab 2 wrenches here to tighten this up, one to hold the hose and one to simply tighten down the new sensor. We have that nice and tight. Grab our connector here, and we can simply probably just relocate it to here. And I'm gonna probably zip tie the connector, or at least the harness here, to the top of the cowl, so that way it's nice and easy to get to and I can reach it no problem. But first, let's go ahead and start it up and make sure we have oil pressure. All right, guys, go ahead and double check everything. Make sure all the fittings are reconnected, all the connectors are connected, the fuel line is reconnected. And once you've double checked everything, let's go ahead and go inside the vehicle, turn the key on, and start this vehicle up. Make sure we're neutral. There you have it. We've got good oil pressure now. Let's take a look to see if we can, well, let's change that. 42 PSI, good oil pressure, just what we needed. Let's go ahead and double check, make sure nothing is leaking underneath the hood. All right, guys, and just like that, our oil pressure problems have been solved. Thanks to the brand new oil pressure sensor, and thanks to the brand new relocation hose here. When the sensor fails, which it's going to again later down the road, all I have to do is go down here and take it off the end of the hose, undo the connector, and replace it. Really simple. Should take me less than 2 minutes to replace it now versus maybe a couple hours, which this job can be done pretty simply, guys, with easy hand tools on your weekend. The only special tools you'll need are this fuel disconnect tool here and the oil pressure sensor socket here, which is the thin wall socket. I will link both of these down below if you guys are interested in picking one up. But yeah, guys, if you guys found this video helpful, like I said, please like, please subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.